You got the sexy naked people card, the lovers. this is more than good friends. This is sexy times. My kids want me to burn this card. They're just like, oh God, naked people.
Speaking of burning,
You light that shit up, and so it is.
we're about to burn some you know what with Tarot Lori.
It works. Nobody leaves a ritual like burn your shit without feeling better.
As we go all in on rituals.
People think I have 50 horseshoes up my butt, and I'm like, guys, I just do my rituals. Like, I'm not special or magic. I just do the thing.
Talk tower moments.
And that's when things get really juicy.
And experience the fiery magic of spirit. Like, seriously, you can't make this up.
You know. Just got like, ooh, Goosey's about. You're witchy. I don't like it.
On Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers. Welcome to Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers, a podcast dedicated to those seeking a more fulfilled and purposeful life through thought-provoking conversation, spiritual exploration, and authentic connections. The intentional movement has begun, and if you found yourself here, you are a part of it. Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers starts now. Hi, Lori. Welcome to Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers. I am so excited that we get to talk today. I think we are going to have a fun conversation, and that is the theme I think that we want to start out with. Fun, tapping into the fun of our spirit, because that's what tarot should be, I think, is fun. So welcome. Everyone knows you as Tarot Lori, so I'll say welcome Tarot Lori to the show.
Thank you, Courtney. I'm so happy to be here. And I love that is your theme for today. It aligns with me beautifully.
Well, that's the thing is like we talk about so much self-help, self-development. We talk about a lot of serious topics on this show, which is great. And I'm like a deep dive kind of person. But then I think sometimes we can get really bogged down with that. And when we can tap into the fun of things, that's when we really connect with our spirit. Or so that is what my mentor always tells me. And even in our last conversation we had one of our best sessions ever, because we were laughing the whole time. I was joking with her. I was like, I was trying to manufacture a problem to come to her with so that we can solve it before we got on our call. And then I started laughing. I'm like, why am I doing this? She's like, I don't know, because I'm always coming to her with like, how do we solve this? How do we navigate that? Yet we had one of the most transformative conversations because we were laughing the whole time, which in her world and your world and in our world, that's when spirit is present, is when we are laughing. And that is what you do with tarot. You make it fun. So let's talk about that. What is the importance of fun in our spiritual practices?
Well, I think to your point, just about the laughter right off the jump, our defenses are down. We can't be fake or performative when we are in that like moment of pure joy and silliness. And I take what I do very seriously. I've been doing it professionally for decades, but I'm not goofy about it, and I'm not so precious about it. So my tagline is woo woo without the cuckoo. I'm covered in goosies already, Courtney. My tagline is woo woo without the cuckoo, because that gives people an instant sense of my approach, that tarot, anything in the metaphysical world, different modalities, they are tools for your healing, your growth, but also to help you tap into your joy, to tap into the fun of life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, we get so serious in life. Like, why are we so just bogged down with the seriousness? Because life is, we're supposed to go through all the emotions, obviously. And that's what I think Source wants us to experience. But we can get so bogged down with like the seriousness. And I think lately it has really felt heavy. Oh. And, how do we learn to tap into, call in spirit with that fun a little bit more?
Well, I think to your point, life is hard. There are tough times, and we go through really tough seasons, and it's not to discount that or toxic positivity. Like it's great when it's not. It's more just to understand we have to be happy, healthy warriors, and we have to fill our cup, and we have to, some people are here. Oh my God, the goosies are crazy. Some people are here to bring that like deep healing and restorative work to people at their depths, and not to say that I don't do that through my work and you through yours. there is also, though, the balance of my mission is inspire, empower, and enlighten. So it's not shying away from the shadow stuff or the darker stuff, but it's not just saying, this sucks, here you go, where's my money, see you later. It's not that. It's more like, okay, you're in it right now. Like you're in the tough spot, the tough stuff. And here's a mindset shift you might want to consider. Here's a different way of looking at things. Here's here's the energy waiting around the corner for you to help you make that final push. Because life is ups and downs, it's peaks and valleys. We can't avoid that. We can help to manage it and mitigate it while still getting the growth and learning that we're here to get.
Yeah. And when we can laugh through things, or, see the levity in any situation. Now, I'm not talking about like tragedy by any means, but like when we can see the levity in even those harder times, laughter is such great medicine. But it was even when you were thinking, it just made me think of like one of my favorite lines in the musical Hamilton is what are the guy Hercules Mulligan, or I forget who he was, but he says, "We're in the shit now. Somebody's got to shovel it." Like, I love that phrase. It's like, there are times when you're in the shit, you got to shovel it, but once you get through that, there is gold. I mean, even just as I'm saying it out loud, I'm just thinking, that's fertilizer. Yeah. It's fertilizing the growth. It's fertilizing the beauty, the fertilizing what is to come on the other side. And so even those shitty moments can really lead us to some of the most beautiful things.
Well, and that's like, just to bring it to tarot for one moment, a card like the Tower that everyone's like, oh, it's really scary. It's learning all the lessons. It's the blinders being ripped off, but they need to be ripped off. Blinders on is no way to go through life. And there's this aha moment of like, oh, now I get it. Oh, now I see what that was. But that isn't necessarily like an easy, fun journey, It's the dark night of the soul. It's Saturn returns. And so you come out the other side looking at that previous version of yourself thinking, I don't even recognize that person. Doesn't mean it was easy, but it also doesn't mean when you're able to see through, for instance, like a card or any other like metaphysical modality, to get a more high level perspective of things, then it makes it feel a little less trying. You maybe feel a little less alone. You feel a bit validated that even though you're in the shits, like, hand me the shovel, because that's life. Like, sometimes we're shoveling shit, and then the flowers bloom and it's the most fertile compost you could imagine.
Yeah, but it's funny because you said something interesting, which I have realized with especially my intuitive journey. Now, I know I've been tapped in since forever. I shut it down for a while and came back to it, now I finally like came out of the closet and say, I'm going to, like you said, woo without the cuckoo, you get a little bit like, do I really want to talk about this? People are going to think I'm crazy. And I finally was just like, no, this doesn't have to be crazy. So I came out of the closet, but since coming out of the closet, what I realized is that when it comes to intuition, we can get those nudges. Like, we can pull that card, we can get that advice, or we can see what is ahead. But it's really hard to like be like, okay, this is what it means. Tell hindsight, that 2020 hindsight. And I've been doing that lately, which is realizing like, okay, that was my intuition. I understand why I felt that. I understand why I listened or didn't listen and how it was working. And I'm really stepping. I had this conversation with my husband the other day. It's like, it really feels like intuition has this hindsight feel to it to really give us the like bank of knowledge that we are right on. And then you have to learn to, okay, this is what I felt. This is what happened. This is what, this is how it works. So now I need to start trusting it in the present, because that is the hard part when it comes to even like pulling a card, like you said, that Tower moment, taking off the blinders, realizing everything is going to be okay. Yeah. It's hard when you're in it. It really feels like a hindsight practice sometimes.
Yeah. And absolutely, with intuition, I always say it's about recognizing it, listening to it, but the key is trusting it. And often the trust comes through trial and error, the times you listen to it and don't. And then you're like, oh, why didn't I listen? And that's where the validation is important, because really it's just about building the confidence in your own inner knowing. And that comes through experience. It's nothing that you can just like, meditate 500 hours. Oh my God, I'm there. It's the trial and error. And so, I think you're on the right path of that. And it can be helpful to like note it down on a notes app or in your journal of just like, oh, here's where I listened and it paid off. Here's where I didn't and it sucked. and it helps you to see it.
But it's even in those, like, I almost feel like the error moments, the times you didn't listen, where it's actually more powerful, because then it's kind of, because I don't think we realize it. If we follow that nudge, or we follow that hint that something just falls into place, a lot of times we just pass it off. Oh, that's coincidence, or that was nice. That was easy. We don't see that, like, everything was lined up to take us to whatever place that was. Yet it's the times when it's like, I've told this story before. I was staying at my parents' house with my kids. My husband was out of town, and I had parked my car in their driveway, and I had 2 little kids, didn't want to drag everything inside, outside, move the car. It was just, one of those things. I left in the driveway, not thinking about it. I kept getting this hint: go move your car, go move your car, go move your car. And I'm like, I'm tired. I don't want to do it. Wake up 6 a.m. in the morning to a loud crash. My dad forgot my car was there and backed right into it. I mean, such a little thing, not a big deal, but it's like things like that, okay, that was my intuition. Those are the times when we really start to realize, oh, this is what it is.
Right. That's when spirit's like, okay, enough with the feathers. Here's a hammer to the face. Like, are you getting it? Do you hear it? Are you listening? Yeah.
Or you pull a tarot card and your life falls apart. So, like, let's talk about that. There are cards that are scary that you pull in the deck. I actually pulled a couple cards before we got on. I was asking a couple of questions, and one of the cards I pulled was the devil. I was like, oh, that doesn't feel good.
Listen, I have so much to say about this, because first of all, I believe there are no bad tarot cards, just bad tarot card readers. Okay. I believe that even the cards like the devil, the tower, the moon, you can they're reflecting what is going on in your life and the energy of the moment, or the energy that is, on the horizon, and what you choose to do with it is up to you, because you have free will. These are not predictive at all. I tell people, I am not a fortune teller. I'm not going to be like, his name's Bob, he'll be at Starbucks on Wednesday. That's goofy. But I absolutely believe that you can get like a peek behind the curtain to see what's going on energetically, to help empower you to make the best decisions for yourself moving forward, or to be mindful of certain like potential pitfalls or challenges. So, and also something I want to say, now I'm on my soapbox for tarot. Each of these cards has a different story to tell, but when, I've had this deck for 35 years, every reading I've done, thousands and thousands of readings are in this deck, and you develop a dialogue with your cards over time. So a lot of the meanings that I have are kind of like way on a different track from the Tarot 101, or they go much deeper. So that's why reading with me is not like a typical tarot reading at all. So a card like the devil, which traditionally is about like the 7 deadly sins, greed and lust and envy, addictions, all this scary stuff, right? For me, it actually goes upstream from that. It is about the limiting beliefs, the negative self-talk. It's the devil in your head, the gremlin on your shoulder going, you're not this, you're not that, it's never going to happen. So you have to deal with that shadow work so that it doesn't then manifest as addiction or, unpleasant, like lust and jealousy and all that kind of stuff. So do you see how it goes deeper?
Interesting. I like that. And that makes so much more sense from like the intention I had set for that card that I pulled. What you just described makes so much more sense than, going to the book and reading the meaning. And I know that we shouldn't really, well, I don't want to say should or shouldn't. I know that that's not really the way to read our tarot cards, pulling a card. We really do want to beginning. Is that really the best way to start?
Oh my God. So listen, everyone needs to read the little book that comes with the thing, because otherwise you're like, I don't know. And your interpretation of the card, I think, is equally important. So if you look at a card like the High Priestess, and you're like, okay, here's what the book says. But I would say, before you look at what the book says, what does it say to you? And it depends on which deck you have, because there are so many different designs. They're not all the same. They often share certain elements. So does this make me feel happy, sad, bored, annoyed, intrigued? What are the colors saying? What are the symbols saying? What is the message of this card, just straight without any kind of prompt? Then you go to the book and say, oh, this is what the book says. That's interesting. And then you just start to develop your own dialogue around that card, your own interpretation of that card over time. And that's when things get really juicy. I absolutely had the book going for years. I also was mentored by like a legit witch, like a full-on broom-toting, spell-casting witch. And she mentored me on tarot. And then
Mm-hmm.
during a move, probably 10 years, I'd had my deck. Well, maybe not 10, but I lost the book in a move, and I was like, oh, well, it's over. Like, I can't, what am I going to do now? I can't do this. And I was forced to rely more on my interpretation and my intuition. And by the time I found the book a few years later, it was like, I don't need this thing. It's like a cute little historical relic now, so I'll often tell people, here's the Tarot 101. Here's how I take it in a different direction, or sometimes I just don't tell them at all because it's absolutely irrelevant in the context of a reading with me.
Wow. I mean, that's just so fascinating. And I know that, like, I know it's like, what does the card evoke in you first? And I actually was practicing the other day on my husband a little bit on some readings for him. And I pulled a couple spreads, and I always question, because I feel like, most of the time when we're going to get like a psychic reading or a tarot reading, whatever it is, we're looking for some big answers. We're not like, okay, where should we go to dinner tomorrow night? I mean, that's a fun way to get familiar with it. But, we're looking like for the love of our life, or should I marry this person, or should I quit this job? I mean, these are big things. And we usually have like a motive, what we want that answer to be. So we can like project our own feelings into it. So when I was doing this reading for my husband, it was a work related reading, and I was doing this a couple different spreads. And I was curious to see, I'm like, how am I, because this affects me too. So can I pull myself out of this to do the reading? And I was for the first time, so impressed with myself for not putting my own opinion or feelings into it.
Amazing.
I did the reading, and then I was kind of like, okay, maybe I'm going to go to the book and read. So I did my intuitive interpretation of it all, went back, got the book, did the reading. And I was like, holy shit, I was right on. So like, that's a way, like if you can do the reading first, like intuitively, and then kind of go back to the book and be like, okay, is this right on? And that just goes back to our intuition. Like I find that I keep finding things to support that my intuition is right. Yet, the faith in it or the trust in it sometimes is lacking.
Yeah. So people, I mean, that's why I'm always screaming from the mountaintops. Like if you're looking for fortune telling, I'm not your gal. That's not me. I'm not going to be like, here's the job you're going to have. The company starts with this letter. No, thank you.
Yeah.
However, in my reading, I always say it's like a conversation with your soul, and I'm the interpreter, or you're kind of life coaching the crap out of yourself with it. It's really like life coaching. And so it won't be like, here's the name of the person you're going to marry, or here's the job you're going to work at, but it's going to be more about, here's the work you need to do on yourself to get to a space energetically to welcome that person in your life if that's what you're looking for. Here's what you need to let go of to help you ascend to that next chapter in your career. Here's the work you need to do. So it's less predictive fortune telly, because that's not what tarot is. My second book, we'll talk about the first book's about ritual. The second book I'm doing for HarperCollins is about tarot, and it's my approach to tarot, but going deep in the history and stuff. It's really, there's nothing, there's so many stereotypes and so many cliches about tarot, making it like all scary and the death card. The death card's one of my top 3 cards. I love that card. It's amazing.
Why?
It's how you deal with the message. Because it's about transformational change that is necessary and positive and good. And what makes the card ominous and gross for people is their relationship with change. So if you resist change, it's going to be like, ugh, even though the end result is great, the process is more difficult than necessary. If you embrace it, let's do it. It's awesome start to finish. It's like a Band-Aid coming off. Are you going to go and you don't even feel it? Or will you be pulling it off like a little kid going like, ow, 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 every little hair, how you experience the message of that card is up to you, but it's ultimately this excellent, amazing, necessary change. It's just not necessarily easy.
Yeah. I wish more of us would embrace change. I personally am like a person that loves the change. And I like to think of it. I always use the butterfly thing because my daughter's obsessed with butterflies, and we got her one of those butterfly kits last year for her birthday. So where, you watch them go from the caterpillar to the thing. And it just is such a great metaphor for change. I mean, it's an ugly process. Like when they come out of that, it's just like not pretty. And then you see these beautiful butterflies you get to release into the wild, and it's just like amazing.
It's like,
I just love the concept of change, and we always need to be changing and growing. And if we're not, like, God, life is boring. So we need to embrace that change. And I love that it's all in our perspective of how we want to read the cards and what we want to take in from them. So like, what is like coming through to you? Do you want to pull a card real quick?
Yes, I do. Let me just see my cards here. I spilt one here. A couple flew. Okay. So I always knock on my deck. You hear me knocking just to sort of like a little energetic palate cleanser between readings, even if it's at an event with like people coming through like a conveyor belt. I always give them a little knock, little tarot tip. I stare at you super awkwardly. Get your mojo in here. And then just going to cut the deck. And all that I do when I'm at events or where I'm just seeing people really quickly, I'll just ask what you need to know right now. Is that cool for you?
Sure,
I'll just say, what does Courtney need to know today? No, that's the question. No, that's all I'm going to say.
I thought you were asking me for like, perfect. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, right? Because it puts people on the spot when you're like, oh God, I don't know. What do I need to ask? So tarot will always have something to tell you. Like tarot is always going to give you an answer. So let's just see. This is what I do in my card of the day on Instagram every morning during the week. I do a little tarot scope and I just say, what do we need to know right now? So let's see. What does Courtney need to know right now? Oh, okay. Okay. I mean, you're going to love. I pulled two cards for you because the first card isn't saying your husband's going to like it. You got the sexy naked people card, the lovers. This is more than good friends. You know, this is more than good friends. This is sexy times. My kids want me to burn this card. They're just like, oh God, naked people. So it's your relationship, right? Your love relationship. And I pulled another card and that's what I'll do often too, is like, okay, great. But like, what about it? You know, we need more info. And then this is really sweet. You got the 10 of coins, 10 of pentacles. And you see this old man here. He's surrounded by his money, his dogs, his family, his land, all the stuff he's acquired over his life. And this card is telling you like, Courtney, you're going to be the old guy one day. It's off in the distance. It's on the horizon. You're not deviating off course here. There are twists and turns, peaks and valleys to getting you there, and you're getting there. So take this card and any worries associated with it, shove it in a drawer, and come back in like 40 or 50 years. Then you can be the old guy. You got other stuff to focus on right now. Don't add this to your list. Don't worry. I got goosies. Don't worry so much what the last day on earth looks like, because there are so many days between now and then. And people often want to get a reading to be told it's going to be okay. And I always say that's not how tarot works. Tarot's like homework. But this is the closest that a card gets to saying it's going to be okay. So to get that with this, and I'm covered in goosies and sweaty now, like, isn't that lovely?
That is so amazing. And I love that you pulled something that says it's going to be okay, because that is one of my biggest things that I always stress over is I want to know the ending. How is it going to end? Is it going to end up? Okay. That's what actually turned me back on to my spiritual path, is because I wanted to know, when was I going to meet him? Is this going to be okay? Am I going to be happy? Am I going to have financial freedom? Like all these different things, you know, the answers that we all want to know. And I want to always know the end game. Yet, despite what we're saying is that we can't, these aren't predictive. It's actually exactly the prediction that I've always wanted.
Isn't it? But see, again, it's not a prediction. It's a reassurance.
That's crazy. That's amazing.
That's why, isn't tarot cool?
It's so cool. And, you know, I've had people say, you know, oh, it's not a parlor trick and something, but it is. Like, it is fun in a way, you know, like there is that fun. Going back to the fun, there's that witchy fun aspect of it. And I love that, you know, you learned from an actual witch. So like, what kind of witchy stuff did she teach you?
Well, she is legitimately, I mean, she looks like a witch. She had red velvet wallpaper. She had brooms and the whole thing. And everyone I grew up in Calgary, Alberta, in Canada, in the 80s and 90s, like there was no Google. You had to know someone who knew someone, and she was like the psychic around town. And she just had a similar kind of approach. She's super fun and effervescent and bubbly, and takes it seriously, but doesn't take herself seriously, and isn't like she isn't like obnoxious about it. And she just sat, I said, I don't know why, but I am obsessed. I am just like called to these cards in a way that I'm not with palmistry or crystals or anything. I love all that stuff, but the cards were like, oh my God, a magnet to me. And so I did a paper in university about feminism and witchcraft throughout the ages, and I interviewed her as a modern witch, and from that point we just became like friendly. And then she said, "Come on over, and I'll go through each card with you and tell you the story of each card." And she gave me this book that is like not in print anymore about witchcraft. And I'm not necessarily a witch, in turn, like the Sabbats and stuff, winter solstice, equinox, I like to do little rituals around that. I wrote a whole book about rituals, but I'm not a practicing witch in terms of being super dogmatic about it. I'm not dogmatic about anything. I will sometimes put Wiccan under religion on government forms just to like fuck with people.
So do you see like the rise in like witchery now? Because I feel like it's so mainstream to say I'm a witch or I'm a business witch or I'm like, and even this whole concept of like creating rituals. Now I know you're in the space and I'm in the space. So obviously our social media feeds are going to be filled with things like that. But I also feel like it's way more mainstream especially like in the
100%.
self-help and development community. We're talking about this stuff all the time. Why? I mean, you wrote a book about it. There's a reason.
Yep. I think that what I've found in my own life through my clients and through my research for the book is that, I mean, our humanity is rooted in ritual.
Yeah.
Modern humanity, ritual is the fabric that binds us, whether it's blowing out a birthday candle or doing a book club or doing a dance before the big hunt, like we need that. We need it to connect with ourselves. Rituals connect us with the divine. They connect us with our community. And as, oh my God, if you could see the goosebumps. And as we become more connected than ever through technology, we have never been more disconnected from self-divine community. And so we crave rituals. It's like craving water when you're thirsty. Like it's a basic need. And that's why people are turning to, so-called alternative methods to bring ritual into their lives. It's why we were out banging pots and pans during the pandemic. That was a ritual. Because everything was pulled out from under us, and we had to have something. There was a vacuum there that had to be filled. So we're out there with our pots and pans for the healthcare workers to bring us together. So rituals can be used. I speak to corporations about rituals in the workplace, team building. Rituals have been proven scientifically to enhance productivity, to be able to optimize performance, to make food taste better. Like it all gamut. And you can, that's the thing too, with my sort of woo-woo without the cuckoo approach, is with a ritual, you can have the cauldron and the crystals and sacred geometry and we're lighting incense and all the things, or you can have a pot from your kitchen and a Bic lighter and a pen and paper from the dollar store and write down what you're ready to release, light it on fire. And so it is. Do that under a full moon. Delicious. That's my burn your shit full moon ritual. I always tell people you can have all the gear, but just take a kitchen pot. It's fine. It's still going to work. Rituals are habits infused with loving intention. So the key is intention. Just like with a reading or with anything you do, the action you take is preceded by intention. You have to get clear on why you're doing this ritual. I do a full moon ritual on Instagram Live. People join from all over the world, Kenya, Panama, Italy, Australia. It's a collective coven. And people send me stuff to burn on their behalf. And the wild thing, Courtney, is that I'll be reading out something some lady from Denmark sent me. I now choose to release shame around blah, blah, blah. And as I'm reading, I'm like, ugh, it's like I wrote it. And you're watching from where you are on Instagram Live, just like, oh my God, this is really resonating with me. It is as much our release as it is Denmark's release. It is this communal, cathartic lightening that happens.
What is it about burning your shit? Because I mean, that just takes you back to like the whole witchy times when witches were burned at the stake. But even my husband and I, we did this. We have this ritual every New Year's Eve. Here we are talking about rituals. We create, like our vision boards or whatever. And this year, we decided, and we've always kind of kept them to see like what transpired, which has been interesting. But then I had the feeling this year, I'm like, no, we need to burn them. We need to let go of that and bring in the new energy. And so New Year's Eve, we went outside, very not thinking it through. We used like a plastic bucket thing that just burnt the bucket. So I'm like, Yes, it's like, go get water.
Yeah.
And I'm like bringing out this, panicking. I brought out like a cup of water. He's like, what the fuck? I'm like spitting on this little, it was fun. It wasn't a big deal. It was snowing. There was ice. Like, we were fine. But I mean, what is the significance of actually burning our shit? Like, does it actually work?
I think it does for sure. And I got a book deal out of it. The HarperCollins people saw me do Burn Your Shit on Instagram Live 2 days before we had a meeting, and were like, tell us more about these rituals. And it's because, again, you're writing down, you're committing to paper. I now choose to release. I am taking ownership on letting go of my reliance on thinking everything has to be perfect, knowing that is really just covering a fear that I will not be accepted or loved or wanted unless I can be perfect, something like that. And then you light that shit up and you watch those words burn and disappear before your eyes. And as they do burn, you say, and so it is. You are putting ritual. You are bringing closure to yourself through that. And water, after we're done the ritual, I have this big bin, the fireproof bowl, like cauldron, full of ashes. And, fire is the most transformative of the elements. And then I add water to make a little shit stew. Water is the most purifying and cleansing of the elements. The air is the engine that makes it all go. And then I go and bury those ashes in the ground and put them back where they came, so we're bringing all of the elements into play. And what is wild is the feedback I get from people, regardless of culture, geographic location, season of life. There is a true shift that occurs during this ritual, which is why I've been doing it for, years and years and years. And people, I am up in Canada. I have to haul my cookies out on my front porch, regardless of the weather, because people are like, it's time to burn our shit. Like, they can't get enough of it because it works. Nobody leaves a ritual like burn your shit without feeling better. No one leaves feeling worse. I always say in readings, you have to pull the weeds so you can plant the seeds. So during the full moon, the burn your shit, we're pulling the weeds because the moon is reaching the apex of its power and then it releases. And so we're harnessing those lunar vibes to help give the whole thing a little extra oomph. And then around a new moon is when you manifest, and that's when you plant the seeds and you harness those lunar vibes. That's a whole other ritual. And I do that, but that's a group thing on Zoom because everyone gets a tarot card pulled, and I work with people to help them form their intentions for maximum impact. I teach them how the witch taught me how to manifest, and like, I manifested this book. I have manifested things. People think I have 50 horseshoes up my butt, and I'm like, guys, I just do my rituals. Like, I'm not special or magic. I just do the thing. So that's rituals.
That's so much power. And I want to go so many different places with this because one, I've been thinking about that a lot with the moon. It's like how the moon plays into our life. So you're saying in the full moon is the release. The new moon is when we set our intentions moving forward for our manifestations.
Yeah.
But with ritual, is it all just about the intention you set at the beginning of it? Because I've heard things like, I love the idea, the play of fire and water and burning our shit. Like, I love that. But I've also seen people say, take something, write it down on a piece of paper and freeze it and things like that. And to me, that feels like you're just going to get that energy stuck in this place. Like the symbolism of burning it, like, makes sense to me. So is it actually like we need to find the right ritual, or is it the intention that we set in whatever the ritual is that we decide to go about?
That's an amazing question. It is an and both. I don't think it's an either or. You do what works for you, leave the rest. Because if you're doing something and the intention is there, but it's not resonating with you for whatever reason, like the freezing, I'm like, oh, no, thank you. That's like putting it in water. I don't want to do that. Get rid of it. Then it's not going to be as impactful. You can do burn your shit on a random Tuesday morning. It doesn't have to be done under the full moon. If you feel compelled to burn some shit, go burn that shit. The book has rituals around divorce, around grief, loss of a person or a pet or someone special to you. Or a job. You can write a letter to your old job, dear job. It's not me, it's
Mm-hmm.
you. Like you mother, whatever. Just let it all out, or write to a person, who you've ended a relationship with, and then you read that letter aloud under that full moon, or you read it to yourself, or once you've written it, it's one and done. But then you say, above your cauldron, frying pan, whatever you're using, I now choose to release everything contained in this letter. I release the grip I have on your heart, the hold you have on mine. I release you to a life of love and joy and prosperity, and myself the same. I release our bond in this lifetime, past lifetimes, future lifetimes, whatever else you want to say. Then you light that shit up, and as it starts to burn, you say, and so it is.
I love that. I love that because, I preach about writing. I'm a writer.
Yeah.
I talk about that, like getting all that energy out onto the
Get it
paper and things like
out.
that. But I love taking it that step further, and like, it makes me want to go burn some journals. It's like,
Well,
let's just get rid of this, because why am I holding on to it still?
listen,
Even
yeah.
in the,
Courtney, we are doing this on March 24th. Tonight is the full moon. I'll see you on Instagram Live, 8 p.m. Eastern. Like, I'll be burning my shit tonight. And I even had a little note in my calendar today, amazing astrology today. And I can't even remember why I put it. I just heard it, was like, ooh, note that. And that the fact that it's a full moon, and the fact that we're speaking today, and I'm like sweaty and need to have a shower after because of the goosies. Like, it's not nothing. Like, we're sort of having a powerful witchy interaction right now, but women gathering for a book club is a coven as far as I'm concerned, and I have a friend, as much as we're all about writing and do this whole thing, she loves to just go write a word or a sentence on a rock and then go chuck it in a lake. And she feels great doing that. That's a ritual. Having a bath is a ritual. Doing your skincare is a ritual. Making dinner is a ritual. Like, you can make it whatever you want, as long as you're putting like the intention towards it and being present for it. That's another reason rituals work. They bring you into the moment. They bring you into your body.
Well,
Yeah,
I would say that's, amazing. I mean, that's one of the biggest things to, in general, tap into our intuition. One of the things I personally struggle with is being present in the moment. Mm-hmm. We're not going to pull a card and make sense of it if we're not present. Like, that energy doesn't resonate. So how do we get more present in these moments to do that?
Well, I mean, usually it involves putting the phone down, which is easier said than done. Right? Stepping away from the busyness. It's sometimes being in nature. The easiest way I can become present is to put my phone on, leave the phone in the car, honestly, or at home, and just go and be in nature. You can't help but be present. Even if your mind is wandering and racing and whatever, you just, like breath, nature, just, having a candle that you're just staring at that flame and just sort of letting whatever thoughts come. Like, it's creating that sanctuary for yourself, but it doesn't have to be a big elaborate, 20-day ashram where you're like not talking to anyone. It can be, I used to meditate when my kids were younger. I would set the timer for 3 minutes, 3 precious minutes. Really? I'd go sit in my closet on a pillow and yell at my family, like, Mom's meditating. Don't talk to me for 3 minutes. And then I would just like breathe for 3 minutes. That's a beautiful ritual, and that can be a game changer. The smallest rituals can have the largest impact on your life. If you put too much pressure and on like a big production, then it can stop you before you start. Sorry, I cut you off.
Yeah, no, just as you're saying that, I'm thinking about, like, I've always done my bath. Like, that was my thing. That was where I would unwind, and like literally I would channel whatever I was writing for work, for TV, when I channeled my bridesmaid speech. Like, literally, I've channeled an intro to a book in there. I mean, the other day I was just like, I'm in the thick of it with the 2 young kids. I don't have time for that. So the other day I set a timer. I said, let me see if I could get in the bath and close my eyes and just put everything out of my mind. And I set it for 10 minutes, being optimistic. Let's see how long I could get myself to do this. Now the kids were asleep, so I had no one bothering me, but I found that I got myself to about 4.5 minutes before I was like, okay, like, what's going on? But it felt good. And I got some really big insight. Like, it came through. So, I mean, that stuff works.
Because also think about what a beautiful expression of self-love and self-care that was for you. To be able to recognize that you needed that time, to go to the place that you knew was a place that was important to you, to dedicate time that, even though you didn't fill it, like, that was a good chunk of time, even though you're like, 10 minutes, 10 minutes is 10 minutes, And for you to dedicate that time to just you, especially as a mom of young kids. That is like radical self-care.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the hardest things that I find with even just being present, but like kids aside, and then you got the technology side of it. We have our phones, and it's so funny. It's like we have to disconnect to connect. And I find this weird dance with our technology because yes, we have to disconnect to get in touch with our intuition, our spirit, all that. Yet by connecting with so many, we are actually making this more widely accessible through things like our phone or through us being able to have this conversation that we wouldn't have. So like there's these pluses and minuses that I've been struggling with lately, because I've spoken to a lot of people about the loneliness epidemic and things like that are being caused by being so attached to our devices. Yet it can really bring us together too. And I don't know which, it almost feels like that both and mentality.
I was just thinking that, it's definitely, it can be two things. It can be the bane of your existence and also a lifeline.
Yeah.
Right. And that's okay. Like it can be both. And I think having that awareness about it is key so that you can then discern, because it's wonderful. For instance, during COVID, I started doing these online circles. I literally Googled online women's spiritual mastermind. So I was looking for that kind of thing. And I was brought to these group of women who are from all over the world, all sorts of different areas of life. And we started doing this circling every month and these sessions with Andrea Bunderwald and her things called The Art of Circling. And we ended up, a couple of years later, meeting in person and doing in-person retreats. And it was like, we all had massive shifts and transformation occur in our lives because we were coming together virtually consistently. That gathering, that was ritualistic, and then when we came together, forget about it. It was like the witches of Eastwick, like ascensions that happened as a result of just our work together. And it wasn't like we were doing any like spell casting or anything. It was just sharing our stories. It was being able to speak your truth and being held and feeling that was done in a safe and gentle way and non-judgmental, It was really powerful. That's a chapter in my book too. It's the last chapter is like the power of gathering, especially women.
Yeah. It's funny. So I'm a little late to the game. My husband and I started watching The Handmaid's Tale.
Oh God.
We started rewatching it because we started watching it, I think, during COVID. And then we realized like during COVID, things that were heavy, we had to stop. We're like, we turned ourselves on to like,
Schitt's Creek.
Yeah, we were like Temptation Island and all these obnoxious, like just smut stuff, to entertain ourselves. We're like, we stopped watching these heavy things, but now we started watching it again, and I'm watching what's happening. And I realized, it's this back and forth between women and like when they come together, the power they have. And then when they turn on each other. And my husband has said this to me multiple times. When women decide to band together, the world will change. But yet we have not done it yet, that we have so much power because not only do we have the diversity factor, we have the women factor. We are the most oppressed. In his opinion, we are the most oppressed because, depending on your race, you have that factor on it. And then you're a woman on top of it. You're underpaid, you're undervalued, all these different things. Yet when we actually finally decide, like you said, you get together, shit happens.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, then we can get into talk about like the patriarchy and stuff about, the pitting of women against women or race against race or anything. It's, I have thoughts about like powers that are, higher powers that are manipulating that to keep us from being like, this is some bullshit. And I think that's what came about with things like the Women's March and whatnot. And I'm Canadian, so I'm speaking from a place of extreme like privilege and a different perspective. But seeing the power of women coming together in reaction to what happened during that election was really spectacular to see, of just like, oh, do y'all have a sense of the power that's there, the strength that's there? But, even if you're doing it with your group of friends or within your family or, what I do through my work and just helping to bring people into their best selves and to help them ascend into their highest potential, and then they can express that to, and they told two friends and they told two friends. It's that domino ripple effect. That's beautiful too. Like it can be on different levels, helping people to see their own innate strength and power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think going into that, I mean, I talk about the patriarchy all the time, and I never thought I was like some feminist. I never thought I was like this woman raw thing, but I'm realizing I guess I am. I'm just more about like everyone needs to have the ability to do whatever they want with their own life. Like stop telling anyone what to do.
Yeah.
And women in general, like you have the power. It's your life. We get to create our own reality. But do you see, like, to me, I see things are like kind of crashing down a little bit around the patriarchy, but there's so much fear and ego and power involved that it's just like this, oh, hold on. It's like the control. It's like me wanting to know the end of the reading, and it's just not going to work. Like, there's a shift happening.
There are absolutely shifts happening. There are institutions and things crumbling, and it's kind of like the patriarchy's in a bit of a death spiral. It feels like kind of spiraling down the drain a little bit. And that's why, with the whole, the idea of what you were talking about with rituals and stuff too, is when you see, you can't unsee what you see, you can't unknow what you know. And I think a lot of people, there's fear there because there's safety in the norm. There's safety in the status quo. And that's okay too. Like you can only meet people where they're at, and whatever the modality is, whether it's through doing rituals or tarot or astrology or meditation or whatever your thing is, as long as you're focused on just becoming like the most, it's such an overused term, but like authentic version of yourself, not trying to fit into anyone else's paradigm, not trying to fulfill anyone else's expectations. Like, what do I want? It is my turn. Who am I? What am I here to offer the world? And by the world, I could mean my family or my partner or my community. We all don't have to be Oprah, but I think it's a worthwhile pursuit.
Yeah. I love that you said it is my turn. I think that feels like so empowering when you say it that way. It is my turn.
Yeah.
And I love that phrase. Like I could just feel the energy when we say it. And there's just so much energy in our words. But I do also love how you said you can only meet people where they are willing to meet you. Yeah. And I imagine you deal with that a lot with tarot. Like you could only meet who you're reading for as far as they're going to meet you.
And one thing that took my readings next level, aside from losing a little how-to book, another pivotal point for me was when I just stopped giving a crap of what people thought of me as a tarot reader, because you want validation all the time. Like, okay, the card says this, the book says this. Like, what do you think? Does that resonate? Does that make sense? What do you think that means? And realizing pretty early on that like that wasn't serving anybody. That was about my ego, right? Needing someone's doing a good job. So when because I do get, the essence of a card's message, I'm super intentional about my words. There are certain words that will be said about a card in every single reading I do. And then how the cards work together. I get little visuals. I get little, like just things that get channeled through. That sort of adds the zhuzh. But when I do a reading, it's very much about just giving the information and like what, and I say this at the beginning, what you do with it is up to you. You have free will, So I really don't care what you think about the message I give you, because that is a disservice to you if I care what you think, right? What I care about is that I give you the message that I'm here to give. And that's kind of where my job is done. I'll do it with compassion and humor and insight and intuition and all the good stuff. But like my mission is not to be like, oh my God, do you see how amazing I am? Like this was really good, right? I will say all the time, like tarot's amazing, right? Like these cards, like the cards are saying this, the cards are saying that. Every reading has its own like tone or voice or vibe, which is why every reading is fascinating. Sometimes it's very like ethereal and like metaphors, and sometimes it's prescriptive, and sometimes it's super bossy, like bordering on aggressive. Sometimes it's like a big sister giving you a hug, like there's always a vibe. And my job is to, and every time I tell people, I'm like, because I'll often say like, I'm feeling like I want to kind of like grab you by the shoulders and like shake you. Like I wanted to, and it's, and it feels like the cards are like, are you getting this? Like ding dong, like, come on now.
Hello?
And the person will say, oh, yeah, that tracks. Like, that's how I need to hear it. I'm like, yeah, that's why it's coming through that way. And so if I was so worried about like sounding like an idiot or what you'd think of me, or like, oh God, she's going to think I'm so rude, then that wouldn't be helping anybody. Right. So it's just that idea of like, I'm just telling you what I need to tell you the way I need to tell you, because that is what you are coming to me for.
Oh my goodness. I love it. Do you want to pull a card for the collective real quick before we jump off?
Absolutely. Okay. Another shake. Okay. So I'm just going to kind of focus on, okay. So a card just popped out, and sometimes I have jumpers, and, yeah, this is the card. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm just being sloppy, but this is the card. And this just speaks to our conversation. Do you see? So it is this is another thing I tell people. I have had this card deck for 35 years. Like I said, if you ask me like, oh, Lori, what's the Eight of Swords? I could not tell you what the Eight of Swords looks like. I have no clue. You show me the Eight of Swords, I'll talk about it for an hour. So don't worry about like memorizing the cards. It's about learning the story. Okay. So that's why I had to just look like, which one is this? Oh yeah, this is the Four of Coins or the Four of Pentacles. And he's sitting there perfectly balanced. He's got all these coins balanced. And he's like, okay, I'm not getting ahead. I'm not falling behind. I'm just kind of like status quo, just stuck. And this card is saying, even though there's money here, it could be about wealth, health, career, love, home, family, one or many areas of life where you're feeling stuck. The key to getting unstuck is getting comfortable with risk, getting comfortable taking chances with yourself, not financial or physical risk. Don't jump out of an airplane or take the mortgage to the track. It's not that. It's the mental, emotional risk that comes with stretching outside your comfort zone. Even if it's about financial or physical matters, you know, he's so clenchy. He's just like, I can't lose it. I can't lose it. And this card is saying, guy, stick it under your armpit and go pick up 10 more. And then like, if you drop the armpit one, you're still 9 ahead. It's fine. This card is reassuring you the reward is greater than the risk. So like, go for it. Start getting uncomfortable. Let your intention be to start being open to getting comfortable with discomfort. Because that's where the growth is.
That's perfect.
Right?
Oh my goodness. How perfect for our conversation. Like, seriously, you can't make this up. You can't. I don't know how people don't believe in any of these practices. Like when, things like this happen. I mean, I know you can be cynical, but like, seriously, it's there.
It's because it's the popular culture with like the tarot card reader with the bangles and the scarves and, oh, your dog's going to die on Tuesday. It's goofy. But when used like respectfully and with intention and properly, and using it as a tool to tap into your intuition, these cards are friggin' magic, man. It's undeniable.
I love it. So how do we get your book? How do we follow along with you? Give us all the details.
Okay, so Burn Your Shit, The Life-Changing Magic of Rituals is my book, and you can pre-order it now. I'm Lori Dyan, D-Y-A-N is how you look for it on, bookstores, Amazon, all the places. My second book about tarot that for now is called The Tarot Book. That might be the title. We can't think of a title. It's coming out in October, so that's down the road. And then Instagram is where I'm most active. I do Burn Your Shit on Instagram Live. Anyone can tune in. I do a card of the day every weekday morning on my reels, a little tarot scope, and that's just tarot.lori, tarot.lori, or tarotlori.com. That's where you find me.
Oh my goodness. Well, you're going to have to come back in October when your next book comes out, and we'll talk all about that one.
Would love.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. I loved our conversation today, and
me too.
So fun. I loved it.
Just a blast. Oh, a literal, like, some sort of animal just scurried across my window just now as we did that. Ooh, it was cool. I don't know what it was, but it was something that I just got like, ooh, goosies about. You're witchy.
So fun.
I don't like it.
Oh my goodness, I love you. Thank you so much. And that's it for today's Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you, Lori Dyan, Tarot Lori, for the great, witchy, fun conversation all about tarot, rituals, and so much more. If you want to order Lori's book, follow along in her journey, or anything else, I'll put all the information in the show notes below. And as always, you can find Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers and Intentional Media on our website at CourtneyMyers.com. That's where you'll find our books, our courses, and everything else we have coming out soon. I'll talk to you later. Bye.